Hi, I'm Jeremy Robinson, and this is the 19th hole. Hi, welcome to the 19th hole, brought to you by glal.uk. This week's episode, we've got two, as we always do, we've got two great golfers on the show. We've got Chris Pennell and Alex Groves. Not only are these guys great golfers, but they're ex-Worcester Warriors rugby players. And the reason for the show this week of getting the guys on is to talk about Worcester Warriors and the possible, the turmoil or the bit of a mess it's in down at Six Ways at the moment. And obviously today's a bit of a different day with what's been going on and the sad passing of the Queen yesterday. But we've just heard that the Worcester game is still going ahead tomorrow. So that's good that we can chat about it. But just to say from my point of view, it's sad yesterday what happened, and everybody feels the same way. And the Queen touched many people's lives and an inspiration to many people around the world. So a very sad day, but hopefully we'll move on from it. So anyway, guys, thanks for joining us, and we'll get onto your golf swings in a bit, because we played recently, played a few holes. It was very impressive to watch, I've got to say. But outside of that, so first of all, Chris, so thanks for joining us. And I noticed on Twitter the other day you put the Duckworth statement on, and it's obviously Worcester's been a big part of your professional career. So how do what's your feelings on it to start with before you start really getting deep into telling us what you think's going wrong?
Could be a long chat, this, couldn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, it's difficult to know where to start, really. I probably feel the same way as an awful lot of other people, which is that it's an incredibly sad situation. It's also one of those situations, I think what's done is done. And you mentioned the Duckworth family. You only have to look at Cecil and what he achieved in his life, and his sort of approach to things was very much a case of, right, okay, how do we find a solution to this as quickly as possible, and sort of collaboratively move forward to make something more successful. So hopefully that approach is being felt by the people in charge these days, and a solution, whatever that may be, the right solution is found sooner rather than later.
And then Alex, so welcome you, Alex Grove, another legend at Worcester. Did you have not all your career there? You did go to Scotland, didn't you, while you were playing for Scotland?
Briefly, had a short stint in Edinburgh, but it was sort of flanked by years either side at Worcester. So, but yeah, most of my time at Worcester.
So again, obviously not a good situation from your point of view. And what's your kind of initial thoughts on it?
I think originally it was frustrating, and now it's more sort of, I think as Chris said, it's sad because family did. They cared so deeply about not just the rugby club but the city, and you sort of do a bit of digging into the impact he left on the city, and it's the cricket ground, various charities, hospices, and I mean, of course, the rugby club. But they had a huge impact, and anyone that comes in after Cecil, they're obviously big shoes to fill, and you sort of compare, how they run the place with how he did. And obviously, there's been prior to these owners, there's been the Allens, and but that was relatively short-lived, and it's probably in keeping with the frustrations of the fans and players have in terms of the coaching setup over the years. There's always been a 3-year sort of period where coaches come and go. Now it's sort of the same with ownership as well, and that's really unsettling as a player and staff. But I think just the way it's been handled at the moment is really disappointing. The particularly recently, I'm just sort of feeding off the same scraps that you are, Jerry, in terms of what you read. So you sort of everything's with a pinch of salt. There's been a lot of speculation. That's because there's been no sort of dialogue, I suppose, between the owners and us. I say us as fans now, and that is, even if there's bad news, you still want to know the news, because otherwise the rumor mill starts, and when the rumor mill starts, it's quite an unhealthy sort of process. Is that the word I'm looking for?
Yeah, I mean, I hear what you're saying, but I mean, I've been following it on social media and the communication between the club and the fans really are the ones who help to pay the bills, apart from obviously the TV and stuff like that. But the loyal fans who've been Worcester supporters for years, I feel the communication between the club and the community of Worcester really has been pretty poor. I don't know what you guys think. I mean, it's been shocking, really. I know they can't disclose everything with HMRC involved, but you'd think they'd do a bit more than the statements they brought out. I mean, they're like children's things.
Yeah, it leaves a lot to be desired, obviously, and I think as Al alluded to, these there are more important things involved here. It goes far deeper than just the rugby club and into the community. And as you said, Jerry, the support and the fan base have deserved an awful lot more. I kind of feel like it's been coming for a few years, even pre obviously the issues that they've come into with all the COVID stuff. That obviously was difficult to plan for, I would imagine, if you're running a business. But even before that, I think there were a few sort of warning signs as to whether they've been in it for the right reasons. And I say that as a very much as a rugby fan, like Al said. The Six Ways, when Cecil was in charge, he always put rugby first. That was sort of that was clear and obvious. Maybe didn't always get the best advice, but it was always about the rugby club. And then anything that came from that was always to support the rugby club and support the community. Now, obviously, Six Ways is a fairly unique opportunity from a business perspective as well. But unless you have people who are always going to put rugby first, the rugby aspect of the proposition will slowly die. And I think that's kind of what we've seen now, and it's just come to a head where possibly, the vision is maybe the right one, but the priorities haven't been put in place the way that it would have been had Cecil had control over this situation.
Because I mean, when he was in charge, he put all the money into it and built an amazing facility down there. He was obviously, he was in it for different reasons probably than the owners are now. But from the owner's point of view now, it can't be easy to make money out of owning a rugby club, can it?
No, I think I think last week a lot of the figures came out as to what the debt is of each club in the Premiership, and a few clubs have come out not defending their position, but sort of clarifying that those figures aren't correct. But I mean, even if they're not correct, there's still debt there nonetheless across the board. And it's a figure I've sort of always remembered. But I think Worcester were for the last few years running at about a £5 million loss every year. Now, that's you need to find someone to foot the bill for that every year. And the Allens did that when they were here a few years ago. And I don't know if these guys ever had the money to do that for a sustained period of time. It was always about getting a planning ticket for a hotel, a medical centre, everything else that had potential on that site. And that was the priority. And as Chris said, it's 100%. It has to be first and foremost about the rugby club. That's what it started as when Cecil was working up through the leagues. As they got a bit bigger, they take on more staff, they build another stand, all the rest of it, they separate from the Wanderers, but it slowly grew. And the moment you take the foot off the gas in terms of running a rugby club, and you're exploring other ventures on that site as a priority, I think it's gone. And obviously you need all that stuff. You need all the commercial side to facilitate. You can't just go running Premiership games now unless I think you've got a 10,000 seater stadium. So I get it. It's a bit of you need a bit of both. You definitely need the business side of it, but I don't know if it is chicken and egg. You do actually need the rugby first, and I don't feel that's been a priority.
I mean, what you said. Sorry, what you said, Chris, is right. Obviously, COVID came from nowhere, and it's it wasn't an easy situation, but they did have a lot of help, didn't they? Financially, all the clubs did. So you just wonder whether when that came along, they're in a bad position anyway. And as you rightly say, Alex, did they really come into it for the rugby club, or did they come into it to make money out of the facility that was there? Rugby came second, and possibly business plan with the facility came first, you think? Well,
there's a lot of clubs that there's 12 other clubs now that also went through COVID. Okay, not necessarily all 12 are financially healthy at the moment, but certainly 10 of them are, and or better than Worcester anyway. And so they've sort of navigated through the last couple of years and come out the other side. I think well documented. Staff were sort of took a pay cut for a period of time to help the club out, whilst obviously still having a full fixture list. So they've certainly done their bit to help out. And it's like, it seems sort of they've got all this way when the writing's been on the wall for so long, and it's like, I was going to swear then, but you can't do that on a golf podcast, can you? You're like, sugar. I was going to say sugar. And at the last minute, they've realised they're in far too deep, is what it feels like. No, I say it feels like because I don't know, but it's been obvious from the outside, but as someone who has a bit of intel on the inside, that there's been issues for the last few years.
I mean, if you guys were playing, Chris, if you were playing at the moment and or if you were club captain or whatever, surely you've lost, as a player or staff, I mean, surely you've lost all the trust of the owners, haven't you? I mean, I know that the guys got paid in August, but there's no guarantee they're going to get paid in September. And surely when they play tomorrow, the last thing they want to do really is get injured, isn't it? In case it does fold in September.
Yeah, it's a really tricky situation to be in, because no matter how hard you try, no matter how you try and distract yourself and focus on the job at hand, there will of course be doubt in the back of your mind. Without wanting to speak out of turn, I haven't asked the players directly or anything like that, but yeah, if I were in their shoes, I think the last few weeks just would have been probably a couple of stories too far, that a couple of excuses too many now for me to maintain trust in the current regime, for sure. I actually think that they're making the right noises from a rugby perspective, because what else can they do other than just sort of try and crack on and get stuck in and almost use it as a sort of unifying tool. Sometimes it's very powerful to have a common enemy, but you're talking about people's careers and you're talking about, as you say, the potential of injury, etc. It's brutal. I feel really sorry for the players from that regard, because I think Al's point earlier, like the frustration behind it does feel like this is an avoidable situation that we're in, had it been dealt with earlier, had the communication been better, and rather than sort of hoping, oh, it'll be all right on the night kind of thing. Which is how it feels, and it's maybe one of the reasons why there hasn't been that communication. But
I mean,
only a few people really know, I guess.
Yeah, it just seems so kind of shady is not the right word, kind of cloudy. I mean, you know, they put Morecambe Football Club up for sale now, haven't they, which they owned, and they said they weren't going to do that. And, you know, paying the players and some of the staff, not the players, are only being paid 65% according to social media of what they're owed and everything. And the whole thing just seems, and if I was a player personally, not that I've ever played rugby, but if I was a player, I would have lost total faith in the owners. And the one thing I would be looking to do would be to move on.
Yeah, I know what you mean, Jerry, but I think, okay, let's say Chris and I are still playing there now, and we're, I don't know, 3 years younger than we are now, but so still very much towards the end of our careers. Okay, when Cecil was in charge, there was an aspect of it, you're playing for Cecil, part of it. You know, everyone's got different motivations why they're playing. It might be your kids, your family, your mentor, teammates, obviously coaches. Part of that was certainly Cecil, because of, you know, he is Worcester Warriors. I think when it changed hands and the Allens, there was less of that, obviously, and again less of that. Again, you're not really. I doubt boys were ever really playing for the owners before all this. In terms of their motivation, I think what Steve Diamond's done to keep the squad together has been amazing. Don't know the guy, but the sort of coach I'd have loved to have played under, because there's just no nonsense whatsoever. Tells it how it is, and you know, he's the kind of guy you follow into battle. So I think there's not a better bloke. However this ends up, I still think that he's the best bloke for it. But also, as I was saying, if Chris and I were still there, you've got to keep. We might still want another year's contract, either at Worcester or another club. You've got to keep yourself in the shop window. So it's all very well saying, "Oh, we'll just go to another club," but how many other clubs are available in the top flight in August when this really broke out? Bear in mind, all the other clubs have done their recruitment, most of which will be up to the salary cap, or they've left a bit behind in case of injury. You know, are they going to want a player in our situation who's early 30s, if we're a bit younger and coming towards the end of the career, desperate for a club? No is the answer. So as the player, you know, you've got to do it for yourself, but to keep yourself in the shop window, do yourself justice. That's your motivation. And, you know, and your coach, if it's someone like a Steve Diamond, but certainly not the owners. I don't think there probably ever was the motivation to really dig in and play for the owners. You know, obviously the fans as well. And I think a lot of the motivation actually in tomorrow's game will be for the fans, because you see the reaction that this has all had with the supporters and how they've got behind the club, and sort of shown how much they care. I think that sort of will certainly rally the guys.
It sounds like what you're saying, though, Grebs, is that there's not really a future at Worcester Rugby Club with these guys owning the club.
No, it can't be. No, I don't think so.
No. What do you think, Chris?
Well, I think for things to really move forward, I can't see how it could under the current ownership. Obviously, I know they've highlighted, you know, delays in a huge investment that was going to come in, which we've kind of, like I say, it's probably we have heard similar things before, but I guess the positive is that they have also said that they are looking realistically at selling as well. So it seems that their mind is probably made up in terms of, I don't think they want it anymore. But then, you know, they'll want to get out, I guess, in as strong a position as they possibly can, of course. I think maybe hence why there was some of the dealings that seemingly went on a few weeks back in terms of land, etc. But yeah, time. Sorry, the dog's followed me upstairs. He's now shouting out the window. Oi. anyway.
We'll see what the training's like, Grace.
Well, I know what it is. It's the kids. So the kids are they've got their Friday afternoon assembly over in the church over the road. So she can probably see our kids walking over, shouting at them. Yeah. So sorry. The very long-winded answer interrupted by some barking, but no, it can't have a positive future under the current ownership. I can't see it at all.
And do you think obviously they're talking about three potential parties are interested in buying it. The owners obviously want to sell it, but the people who are potentially interested in buying it might be more than happy to let it go into administration. They'll pick it up a lot cheaper, won't they?
Yeah, I don't know how. I mean, but I heard this week again. I don't know if it was social media or what it was, but I heard some of the interested parties are considering buying it as it is, without it going into administration. I can't really. I mean, someone said to me recently that if they won the Euro Millions a couple of weeks ago, sorry, it was like 75 million, and they worked out they could run Worcester for like 5 years or something. Something mad. Like, I mean, so I think it probably has to go into administration, but then ask the question of, it seems far too easy for a club to go into administration, clear a load of its debt, and then crack on like nothing happened. So you can't really allow that either. So I don't know.
Yeah, it's the damage that would be done for the creditors, especially local creditors, I guess.
Yeah, massively.
But that is where, and this is where my frustration really comes in, because, like I say, they're actually not far off in terms of their vision. It's not far off. They've just got the priorities wrong, because that is where Worcester is one of the unique clubs in the Premiership whereby you could genuinely develop that land and create something amazing, create a real destination for people to go to, jobs in the local community, etc., and the revenue that you need in order to make a rugby club profitable. And Worcester Warriors don't ever have to be a profitable club as such. They just need to break even.
Yeah.
And as long as you've got a development alongside the rugby club that allows the rugby to function and run, and puts the product on the pitch, etc., pumps the money in it needs to pump into to create a great stadium for the supporters and also a rugby team to match that kind of ambition. Like, it seems simple enough that it can be done if you develop the land the way that these guys want to, but just prioritize rugby. And there's still money to be made for people wanting to invest. So yeah, like
we should have done this podcast 3 weeks ago and set up a 3-way consortium. But we just need that Euro Mills.
Yeah, that's what you find that mate of yours, Graves, he won that Euro Millions, and we'll be all right. But just kind of moving on then. So I want to just talk to you about your playing days at Worcester and the highlights. But just moving on, Chris, starting with you, in let's say 1 month, 2 months, 3 months time, no relegation this season, which is a blessing really, the way things are going. But certainly say by Christmas, where do you see the club? Administration or new owners, hopefully, or how would you like to see it by then?
Oh, hopefully Grovesy and I have got a gig. They've had several players leave, and they're desperate for some homegrown talent to come back in. How would I like to see it? I'd obviously like to see the vast majority of the players who are there now staying. I wouldn't blame any of them if they were looking for opportunities elsewhere. But as Al said, like, it's going to be tricky. It's going to be very tricky. There's only going to be 2 or 3 of those guys realistically who will be in a position to move and to make it work. So what I'd like to see is a fairly quick sale to hopefully the right owners that obviously have the ambition to develop the stadium or develop the ground, but with rugby at the core, and put people in place to advise on that, people who knew Cecil, knew the legacy, know the history of the club, etc., and then actually start to build on, like I say, some of the really good ideas that these guys do have, but with the correct priorities behind them, and sort of, you know, putting rugby and the community at the heart of it all.
Grovesy?
Well, yeah, obviously I'd like to see. I would say what I like. I think is what everyone wants as a supporter now. But I don't know. Maybe they say it's the hope that kills you, isn't it? But I am quite hopeful. I do think that this will sort itself out. You know, I want to believe what we've all read, and you know, there are these 2 or 3 seriously interested parties who have made offers. You know, and hopefully they proceed with at least one of them, but the right one, and we can start talking more about rugby and not, you know, the stuff, the finances behind.
It sounds like the ideal kind of guardian angel would be some local businessmen who've got fairly deep pockets, can keep the club going for a bit while they're deciding what they're going to do with the land and how to develop it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what their what the process was in terms of the tender process going out to these people, but Penn's talked about the local support and sponsors or creditors, sorry. Well, you know, the work Adam Hewitt's done and offering to fund their pre-season games up in Scotland, which obviously never happened last week. You know, is there the appetite locally for that? I don't know. There's been talk of American money coming in and behind it, and obviously Jim O'Toole's name's been mentioned as heading that up. And I don't know. I'd say I've only been able to read and hear what's been available online on social media and the news. So I've not got the inside track, sadly.
Okay, so moving on to brighter notes, or moving back to brighter times at Worcester when you were both playing. Chris, I always say you're the most capped player for Worcester, but you keep telling me you're not the most capped player, but you've certainly played a lot of games for them. So starting with you, mate, apart from international, at Worcester, what was the highlight? The night when the playoff against Bristol?
For sure, yeah. That is certainly up there. I'd say both championship finals, the Pirates games as well. A few years before then, definitely. And then we've had quite a few, you know, very memorable nights as a team where, you know, those sort of coming towards the end of a season where you're just desperate for a win. You're desperate just to secure your Premiership place that following season. They're not nice games to be in, but you certainly, you create some memories from them. That's for sure. But yeah, and then I guess like some of the milestones along the way have been very memorable. Testimonial game against Exeter with all my family there was up there as well. And then I think it was my 200th against Quins, my 100th against Quins, and my 200th against Quins definitely stick in the mind too.
How many games did you actually play for Worcester, if you include all the kind of cup games and the Championship and Premier League games, Premiership games?
253. I got to.
Wow. And where's that in the list? I think it's first, but it's second.
No, Craig Gillies, I think, was 283, 286, 286 maybe.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm obviously nowhere near that. That's another sort of 2 seasons at least for me.
Yeah.
With my body.
That's why you wanted to go back, wasn't it? Yeah,
that is why.
The worst case scenario happened at Worcester, and they called him. Well, worst case, they'd call me up. I think that is the worst case. But Pens would break the record.
I think we'd have something to add. I genuinely do.
Yeah,
just probably good value. Make everyone else feel good about themselves.
What about you, Grovesy? Highlights?
Yeah, it's obviously that Bristol doubleheader. It's obvious, to be drawn towards that. That was you probably never see anything like that again. Certainly in the English game, where you've got 2 really good sides, basically Premiership sides, operating in the Championship. With sort of Premiership budgets at the time, but yes, operating as Premiership clubs, and it was head and head all season, neck and neck. Although I think we lost both games against Bristol in the league, beat them by a point at their place in the playoff, and then drew at home. But obviously it was on aggregate, and I think it's going to be really hard to beat that. I'd say, my debut, 2006, got a call on a Friday afternoon, load of injuries for a cup game the next day, and it was a case of, it was back in the John Brain era. Just got an opportunity there, and that's certainly something that I'll remember fondly. And probably my last game, actually. So my Saracens at home. Not for how it went on the field. That's guess how that went against Saracens, who were chasing a double at the time. But yeah, you just met a lot of good friends and good people. Still in touch with a lot of them, and but I think as a pure rugby highlight, that Bristol game,
Yeah, I mean, just before we move off Worcester, as a fan, I've been supporting them for a long time, and even before you guys started playing. And going back to the rugby aspect of it, Chris, there's no doubt, there's been some memorable, the atmosphere down there when it is full, like the Bristol game, and I remember some of the games when they first went into the Premiership, nighttime games on a Friday night. I mean, if you're a Worcester fan, there were some fantastic nights down there. There really were. It was amazing. So it'll be a shame if it doesn't get back to that at some point. It really will, because it's a great place to go for a Friday night out, really.
I do kind of feel like we didn't realise it at the time, and obviously I like Al and yourself, I hope that things will get back to that point at some stage, but you don't realise actually how great those occasions were, and how sort of how strong those memories are. Like I remember, I think one of the first games I went to was that relegation decider against Northampton at home. Shane Dram was playing for Northampton. Drew Hickey scored for us to win and stay up, and that was pumping that day. And then like the Friday nights, like you say, where it was always Aleki Latui and Gavin Quinnell would come off the bench for the last 15 minutes and score 2 tries each from like driving mauls or something. So it probably wasn't the prettiest games to watch, but in terms of the level of support, just consistently up, around that. At the time, I think it was smaller capacity, wasn't it? Around that 10,000, but great atmosphere. Just some really good memories, and like you've been there for a long time before us, and the level of support throughout the years that Al and I were there as well. It's by and large the same people, the same people turning up week on week, and have been unbelievable for Worcester. So I really hope that we get back to those Friday nights where it's full in the next couple of seasons.
I remember that Northampton one. Shane Dram was running the game, wasn't he?
He was.
And he was coming to Worcester the next season. They took him off, didn't they?
He'd have been a great signing in the Championship. But,
So moving on from Worcester, before we talk a little bit about golf, which is what we do talk about on this show as well. So Chris, you finished at Worcester, and then last season went to play in Dallas.
Mm-hmm.
So just briefly, just tell us how that came about, and what was it like?
It came about, I guess, through me just A, wanting a bit of a change, and B, I didn't feel like I was ready to hang up the boots just yet. So I was exploring opportunities. I fancied trying something very different, and had my eye on the MLR over in the States for a couple of seasons, really, just to see how it was growing. And yeah, the opportunity with Dallas came along, which sounded really exciting, and it was an opportunity to go somewhere brand new. It was Dallas's first year in the league last year, so felt I had a decent amount to offer in terms of building things from the ground up, given the amount of directors of rugby and owners that we've been through at Worcester. And it was a really fun season. I mean, we lost every game, as you like to say. We had a beaten season.
I'm only joking when I say that,
which was certainly tough. But I have to say, in terms of like the group of lads that that were there, it's up there with some of the best people that I've been around in the game. And I actually managed to enjoy my rugby more out there, weirdly, than I had for the last sort of 6-7 seasons at Worcester. So from that point of view, it was a great experience. It was good to take the Joe and the kids over as well, so they could experience a different culture, a very different culture as well. So yeah, it was fun.
And I mean, looking at some of the pictures, was I followed Dallas on Instagram. I mean, played in some amazing stadiums, Los Angeles Coliseum, and some of those places you played. Look, I mean, they weren't full, obviously, but they looked unbelievable.
Yeah. I think that was part of the attraction as well. I've not really explored the States too much, other than a trip to LA and Vegas that Al might remember a few years before.
No, he doesn't. He doesn't remember.
I don't think so.
Oh mate, I found the photos. Honestly, last week. I thought I'd burned them, buried them. Probably should actually.
Probably should, yeah.
Put that out.
But I'd say, are you gonna go back or not?
Yeah, as things stand, yeah. I mean, I signed a 2+1.
Yeah. I thought you went to Vegas.
Oh right, Vegas. I think there might be a team starting in Vegas soon, so you never know. Could get a gig out there. But yeah, things are up in the air, to be honest, because they're going through a lot of changes after our beaten season. So whether I'll be surplus to requirements or not, I'm not sure. We'll find out in the next couple of months.
But given the opportunity, you would go back for another season then?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I like I said, I really enjoyed it. And yeah, like body wise, I felt good coming towards the end of that season. Picked up a couple of knocks while I was out there, but that's rugby for you. I think the team that started the first game, I think by the end of the season there was only about 2 of us who were still fit, so it was tough from that point of view. But yeah, for sure, yeah, it was good fun, and the league is growing, and it's good.
So tell us quickly, Gravesy, about you had a good season last season at Claverdon.
That was an unbeaten season.
I was going to say you were unbeaten.
Absolutely, yeah.
And played in some great stadiums as well.
Yeah, Ossett's Hole Road is home of Claverdon Rugby Club, and I did have 5 or 6 games last year. Leave it at that. Haven't made myself available for selection this weekend anyway, but we'll see.
So are the boots definitely hung up then, or not? Or could you be tempted?
I don't know. It's a very social, local village club.
Yeah.
With a lot of good people there. So I quite enjoy just going down and watching, actually, and saving the body, because you still get some big lumps there who are quite not good but clumsy. And
yeah.
I came off second best last season to a clumsy tackle, let's say. So I don't know. I might have the odd run out.
So you'd rather just go down there and watch the boys and have a couple of beers?
Yeah.
Yeah. It sounds like a good thing to be able to do. So as this podcast is called The 19th Hole, we've got a little chat about golf. So I've played golf with you boys quite a bit over the years, and obviously we played recently when I was doing the 108 hole challenge, and you both seem to love golf. That's the common denominator of the people we have on the show. We've had 1 or 2 other people from the racing world and that, but they all love golf. And I think a lot of sportsmen, when they kind of finish playing, golf's a bit of a something they can carry on doing and enjoy it and be competitive at it, but also have a good social time with it as well.
Yeah, I agree. I think we had, I kind of got the taste for it at Worcester when Mike Ruddock was in charge. He had an approach where you're basically out the door by midday every day. So when Al and I were younger, without so many responsibilities, we probably got in a couple of rounds a week, I'd say, at least. And there was a lot of guys that enjoyed their golf then too. But yeah, always up for a round, and you're very kind to extend the invite as much as you do. So it's just one of those things, isn't it? Like, I think at the age and stage, certainly where I'm at the minute, And when you've got a young family, it's tough to justify that time away. But it's always good fun. It's a great game, and as you say, I think when you've got aching bodies at the end of a rugby career, it's a fairly 108 holes, mind you, isn't easy going, but
yeah,
but you can make it easy going.
It's weird. Chris says about the young family. I play golf because I've got a young family. It's 4 hours. I've got to drive there, drive back, shower afterwards, a couple of drinks.
Yeah.
It's a 10-hour day.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. Before you know it, it's 10 hours, isn't it? And you've got to sneak back in through the back door, haven't you?
We get back in just before, just after the kids have gone down. So.
In fact, both of you know my wife. You know that's not going to cut it, don't you?
But anyway, yeah, I was saying to Grovesy, Chris, we'll have to have another knock before the weather turns bad anyway, and do that. So the final question about golf, and I've spoken to everyone about this on the show, and obviously it's a topic that I speak to with the golfers a lot, is LIV Golf, which has certainly shaken up professional golf in a big way this year, and it's changed the face of it, definitely, and there's no turning back from it. Obviously, Cam Smith went to LIV last week, and Henrik Stenson, who was the Ryder Cup captain, he went, and Dustin Johnson to Chambers. And I don't know whether you saw any of the LIV event last week in Boston, but they had a good field, and they had a lot of good players playing at the top. I'd say I don't know whether you've seen anything, but what do you think of it? Like 54 holes and shotgun start and a bit more kind of razzmatazz. Obviously, McIlroy and one or two people have got pretty strong opinions about it, but from my point of view, I think golf probably needed a bit of a shake-up, and I've got some mates of mine who are not really golfers, but they like watching it. There's no adverts on it. They watch it on YouTube, and 4 hours or 4.5 hours, and it's finished with.
Can I sort of sit on the fence, but argue?
You can't sit on the fence.
No. Okay, I'll argue one side, then balance out then. So I probably will never, ever watch any LIV Golf on TV. I really love watching the majors, really get into it. Probably this evening I probably would have caught up on today's, BMW event, which obviously is not being held today.
Yeah.
Yesterday's news, but outside of the majors, we'll watch a little bit of golf where I can. But yeah, love the majors, love Ryder Cup. That's what really excites me, and particularly on a Sunday when it's tight. I'm never going to watch the LIV stuff. What I can't get my head around, is the outrage that some fans have towards these players, particularly like a Poulter, who, I'm judging this from social media, so it might not be fair, but he's getting absolutely hammered. And I don't really understand the format or this team set up in LIV. So I've got no real interest in watching it. But as a player, particularly if you're like a Poulter, Westwood, that age in your career, are they going to actually compete properly for a major? No, really. I'd love them to win one, but it's not going to happen. Why would they turn that sort of money down? That's what I can't get my head around. And all these people, I can't believe the number of people who are sort of turned so aggressively against them. And would they turn that sort of money down? Okay, it's a tougher decision if you're mid-20. If you're a Cam Smith, for example, I think that is quite tricky. But then 100 mil or a couple 100 mil, whatever it is, it's still stupid money.
No, I agree. I think it's a shame that the people such as Poulter, Westwood, and that gets slammed on social media, because they've done a lot of good for the European Tour, and they've played in the Ryder Cup. And Westwood, he's won tournaments all over the world, and he's supported the European Tour. He went to America for about a year or two, but not for very long. Poulter went there. He's played PGA Tour most of his career, but Westwood's been a big supporter, and to knock somebody like that, I think it's.
I love, in terms with golf, I do love the sort of tradition, the etiquette, the rules, and all this. But then again, this is me arguing both sides. But then the sport probably does need a shake-up before it's too late. That in terms of, again, I don't know, this is just a guess, but in terms of if you look at a lot of golf clubs, now there's always golf clubs with waiting lists. However, there's also a load of golf clubs closing down all over the place and turned into housing developments because there's just not enough members. How do you get more people, kids engaged in the sport. You've got to do something different than the sport's been doing for the last however many years. So little things. Like was in the Ryder Cup where they, the players are wearing those sort of hoodies.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, this is a tiny point. But
no, I know what you mean. It's trying to get the young people involved.
They're not appealing to, the 60-year-olds plus.
No.
Who are sort of stuck in their ways, been members for 30 years at their golf club. They're appealing to people, teenagers and kids in their 20s, whatever. The next generation. It's sort of, it's changing it up in terms of support. It's obviously changing it up, trying to attract a new audience. But also, as players, how can you turn that sort of money down?
Yeah.
Easy for someone like a Rory, easier for him to turn it down. He's got one more major to go after, and he's got the lot. He's got silly deals. Financially, he really doesn't need it. Tiger really doesn't need it. So, again, easier for those two to take the sort of high ground. So, yeah, I'm right in the middle.
I think, from your kind of not link it, but put it side by side, a bit like the IPL. Chris, you got obviously a cricketing background. When the IPL came along, people were saying, oh, it's not good for the game and all this kind of stuff. I mean, look at it now. It's a financial monster and it's great for the game. It's changed the game of cricket. And I'm not saying golf needs to change. I agree with you, Grovesy. The majors are the pinnacle of golf and they should stay that way and they should never change. But I think down below a little bit, I kind of see it as a good thing for golf and people wearing a hoodie, a bit like that, but and making things a little bit different to get young people, because there's so many sports going after every young player, whether it be rugby, cricket, football, even now horse racing and all these kind of things. So golf's got to find something a little bit different.
Yeah, I completely agree. It does. And while you guys were talking, the sort of IPL thing popped in my head, actually. I couldn't agree more. And you look at what that's done. You look at what that's done to cricket over here. And, the T20, the way that took off, would that have been as big without the IPL? I wouldn't have thought so. The 100 that's come in as well, having the ambition to make those positive changes to the game, that's been awesome. I thought this is going to be an absolute flop. It's been great to watch.
Yeah.
Really enjoyed it. So, yeah, they're like, I understand everyone is about self-protection, aren't they? So European Tour, PGA, they'll be thinking, right, this is a scary situation because we're up against an awful lot of financial backing here. Like, let's be honest, that's the scary thing for them. But once they kind of get over that period and they stop, they stop crapping themselves like they've been, which is completely understandable because it's a huge threat. But what have they got to do? They've got to adapt and they've got to make themselves better and they've got to reflect on actually how do we improve our product. It can only be a good thing for golf.
I agree totally. I think you've got to take the change a bit, and I think whether they've done it in the right way to make the changes, they possibly could have done it in a little bit more of a kind of humble way, I suppose. I don't know whether Greg Norman, is the greatest man for the job, but certainly they've made the change. And everybody's got to kind of get in a room and sort it out, like they did with the cricket and IPL. And now IPL has got its position in the world of cricket, and they've got to find a way to where everybody can carry on. And the money that it's bringing into the game has got to be good for young players, and it creates more opportunities and everything. So you can. I agree with you, Grovesy. Some people would rather just watch the majors and not too sure, but I think there's room for it. So, but anyway, that's just my opinion. But it'll go on being talked about for a while yet. There's a while to go with court cases. I think the court cases are a bit sad, not sad, but a bit. I don't think they're needed really.
I think in any other sport, it probably wouldn't have. It might not drag on as long as it will in golf, because, as I say, golf is about tradition and etiquette and rules. And I mean, at any golf club, if you want to cut a tree down or change a bunker from one side of the fairway to the other, it's probably 5 years of meetings and decision making to do that. So just because people are scared of change and the shake up. So I think that there probably will be. It will be at the front and centre of journalist questions in every interview for quite a while.
Anyway, so talking about change, first of all, thanks very much for both of you coming on. It's been a pleasure as always. And so talking about change, hopefully there will be change down at Worcester and at Six Ways. And, you know, when we get together again, there might be new owners, and let's hope that we get some of those nights like the Bristol game and some of those epic days at Worcester, which from a fan's point of view, certainly when I was watching, I used to love going down there. And so thanks a lot, boys, for coming on. And when you win the Euro Lottery Millions this weekend, maybe you two can just step in and buy it.
No, we'll go on a golf trip.
Yeah, we'll do that first then. Okay. All right.
We'll watch a LIV event.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. So, all right. Well, thanks a lot anyway, and we'll catch up soon.
Thanks, Jerry.
Okay. See you. Thanks.